Dr. Ravi Narayankar to introduce the conference theme. Dr. Kar. My dear colleagues and friends, Professor Sylvester, Professor Vera, Professor Francis Olgado, and Sri Siddharth Mishra, Chairman College Governing Body, and Sri Narendra Yadav, Treasurer College Governing Body, and Dr. P.K. Khurana, Principal of our college, and my dear colleagues, teachers who are sitting on the other side of the dais, and my dear friends. I take great pleasure in welcoming you all in this third edition of Multinational Enterprises and Sustainable Development Conference. In this edition of MESD 2012, Sahid Bhagat Singh Evening College has joined hands with ICN Business School, the University of Lauren White Research Consortia Laboratory, Serfis, France, and the Georgia Institute of Technology and its National Center for International Business Education and Research, Atlanta, to carry forward collaborative research and policy thinking on the critical dimensions evolving in the field of corporate sustainable development. The third edition carry forward this multi-year research project addressing best strategies, practices, and models for border-crossing firms engaged in the multifaceted process of corporate sustainable development. This conference is intended to be responsive to the needs of governmental, industrial associations, and regulatory bodies, inclusive of the United Nations family of institutions and non-governmental organizations. The conference further strengthens our evolving knowledge and understanding of the interface between government, NGO, and the private sector. Keeping in tandem with this thought, we have entered into partnership with CRDJ, an emerging NGO working in the sphere of equitable sustainable development, many other governmental and private enterprises to learn more about the nuances of this interface. We look forward to an expanding conversation on the topics targeted and a rigorous set of research outputs benefiting from the unique setting of India's bold policy responses to these global challenges. In this context, we had received more than 100 papers, sir. After the rigorous review process, we could accommodate 69 papers in 15 different parallel sessions. I congratulate on behalf of my co-chairs to all these authors whose papers are going to be presented during the 3 days. I am thankful to my fellow co-chairs and other reviewers for the splendid online review and feedback. As a result of this, lots of authors complimented us and improved their papers. In this context, I would like to take the name of my dear friend John McIntyre, who could not join us due to health issues. A big round of applause for him. The uniqueness of this conference lies in its format. We have 2 academic plenaries, 1 corporate enterprise plenary, 1 roundtable, 2 workshops, and 15 different concurrent sessions. I am extremely happy to welcome our keynote speaker, Professor Paul Srivastava, and other plenary speakers and session chairs. They include Professor Jao Paulo Reito, Professor Dharamdev Sharma, Professor Tamin, Professor Patrice Laroche, Professor Francis Olgado, Professor Renato, Professor Rosita, Professor Chinmoy Ghosh, Professor Gabriel Sudo, Professor Karni Janendran, Professor Bernard Girard, Professor Keza Sosa, Professor Subrata Roy. And there are a lot of participation from different part of India also. Professor S.K. Jain from Delhi IIT, Professor Shailendra Singh from IIM Lucknow, Professor Sanjeev Kakoti from IIM Shillong, Professor K.V. Das and Professor A.K. Swain from Utkal University, Professor Rohit Dwivedi from Allahabad University, Professor Rajkumar from BHU Banaras, Professor K.V. Bhanumurthy, Professor V.K. Kaur, Professor Sanjeev Kumar Jain, Professor C.P. Gupta, and Professor N.K. Chadha from University of Delhi. Further, I take this opportunity to welcome some very important dignitaries who squeezed some time from their very busy schedule to be with us on this important occasion. Professor P.K. Sahu, Vice Chancellor Utkal University, and Professor Nutan Vasutra from Jammu Kashmir University, and Professor S.K. Bhiz. Ladies and gentlemen, please give them a very big round of applause. Finally, I welcome all the delegates who have come from 9 different countries and several parts of India, really showcasing the rich academic diversity of our country. In the coming 3 days, we look forward to an expanding conversation on the topics targeted and a rigorous set of research outputs benefiting from the unique setting of India's bold policy responses to these global challenges related to sustainable development. I hope all of us would enjoy the exchanges and wish you all a very happy and comfortable stay in Delhi. Thank you very much.
I request Professor Evan to please come and say a few words about the conference of MESD 2012.
Distinguished and eminent professor from Delhi University, Professor Dinesh Singh, Honorable Chairman and Governing Body and Consulting Editor, Millennium Post, Shri Siddharth Mishra, distinguished participant from India and our countries, and all the members present here this afternoon. It is a distinct pleasure for me to be here for this 3rd Multinational Enterprises and Sustainable Development International Conference, MESD 2012, in India's capital city, and enjoy the hospitality of our colleagues and friends. I convey my sincere appreciation to the organizers of this conference, especially Professor Ravi Kaur and his team from Shahid Bhagat Sai Evening College, members of organizing and scientific committee, and all our sponsors for this conference. They have worked very hard since 1 year to make this conference happen. The MESD conference has been founded in 2004. Its main goal is to raise the key question of the role that multinational corporations play in the conception and implementation of sustainable development policies in the context of economic globalization. Because of the size and scope of their cross-border activities, we do think multinationals are global environmental actors and stewards. Their corporate strategies can accelerate or slow the sustainable development process. The first conference held in 2006 in Atlanta was about the sustainable development as a tool for competitiveness. The second in 2009 in France raised the question of strategic choices for sustainable technologies and innovation, whereas this conference focuses on the managing M&Es, dynamics, and sustainable development strategies, practices, and models. 3 master concepts resume our conference: strategies, multinational corporations, and sustainable development. So we're looking forward to a rigorous and focused exchange of ideas between academics and corporations, and between corporations. We hope so enrich the growing body of policy, management literature, and best sustainable practices. The forthcoming MESD conferences will raise our important questions and create our real opportunities to discuss and address these questions that are in the core of sustainable strategic management. We invite you to be part of this future and contribute for a better world. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Sylvester. And now is the time to inaugurate the conference. And prior to this, I would like to give a brief introduction of the person who will do the honors. Honorable Vice Chancellor, University of Delhi, Professor Dinesh Singh. Professor Singh is the serving Vice Chancellor of the University of Delhi, donning the cap since October 2010. Professor Singh has been occupying positions of responsibility in the University of Delhi from time to time, beginning 1981, when he joined the Department of Mathematics as a faculty in St. Stephen's College, University of Delhi. Professor Singh wrote his PhD thesis in maths at Imperial College of Science, Technology and Medicine, London in 1981. He assumed the office of the Vice Chancellor of Delhi University on 29th October 2010, and prior to that, Professor Singh served as Director, University of Delhi South Campus, and thereafter had a brief stint as the university's Pro-Vice Chancellor. Professor Singh has had the distinction of serving as Adjunct Professor, University of Houston, Texas, USA. Besides teaching at IIT, New Delhi, Professor Singh has written extensively and has authored, co-authored and edited quite a number of books and monographs. He has published research papers in indexed peer-reviewed journals internationally from time to time over his academic career. His research interests include functional analysis and harmonic analysis. May I request Professor Singh to deliver the inaugural address now. Professor Singh.
Chairman Mr. Siddharth Mishra, Principal Dr. Khurana, distinguished guests on the dais and in the audience, colleagues and students. I'm delighted to be present here on this occasion, and I feel heartened to see that this conference has generated so much attention and interest from different segments of society. I am conscious that I'm here in my capacity as the Vice Chancellor of the university. And a Vice Chancellor is supposed to expound words of wisdom on all occasions. There could be occasions of crisis, there could be occasions of celebration, there could be serious occasions such as this when deep discussions and research transactions will happen. And I know now, having been in the job for 2 years exactly, that the wisest thing is to say nothing. I also realized very soon after I got married that it's wise to keep quiet generally. And it has served me well so far. And so it's tempting for me to walk away from here having said what I think I should have said. But there are other reasons that compel me to say something beyond what I have just said. A Vice Chancellor steers this larger entity, a ship called the university. And the university is in some ways a sum of its parts. And a university will be successful when the whole is larger than the sum of its parts. And how does this happen? But when you aggregate the parts, the sum is large, the whole is larger than the sum. How does this happen? It happens when those parts live up to our expectations, when they deliver beyond the ordinary, when they reach out and create an environment that generates enthusiasm, interest, good activities. And I can tell you something, that the University of Delhi as a whole is much greater than the sum of its parts. And why does that happen? It happens because there are parts like Bhagat Singh College Evening that rise above all expectations and deliver. I'm now conversant with this college for some years, and it has never failed to rise beyond my expectations, which in any case are high. This activity today is one more milestone, one more feather in the cap of Bhagat Singh College Evening. And that is as it should be. The chairman, Mr. Mishra, the principal, Dr. Khurana, members of the governing body, the teaching staff, the students, all of them collectively have made this possible. And it gives me delight to see a college function in such fashion. And this is a role model for us. And I assure Mr. Chairman, sir, and Principal, Dr. Khurana, that the University of Delhi will do its utmost to take your college forward in whatever way that you deem fit. I'm told there is a strong possibility that the college may be reborn as a full-fledged regular morning college, which it in any case is, and we will help in every way. We will help because in helping the college, we help ourselves, the university. And why is this activity a great milestone? And I will beg your indulgence for a couple of minutes to explain this. In this land, my land, our land, India, education has been a far more different enterprise in every sense of the term for a few thousand years. India led the world in the realm of education. And India prospered. We talk of sustainable development, the theme of this conference. Sometimes I lament the fact that there are not enough serious researchers who examine the causes that allowed India to prosper to such a great extent over the thousands of years that I talk about. And I will illustrate with specific examples. And to my mind, that was sustainable development, and institutions of education played a major role in that. If you look, the Middle Ages, when Indian educational institutions had been well established for a long, long time, well before the time of Christ, and had run into the Middle Ages with success, how were they contributing? And I'll give you just two examples which brought about great prosperity and sustainable development to India. And it may be worth our while to even take note of these examples to see how we could do that again. Indian shipbuilding, Indian dockyards were extremely advanced in terms of technology in those ages. Indian ships that traveled far and wide to other ports were found to be superior, far stronger, and the envy of other nations. And why was that happening? I'll come to that shortly. The other thing I want to highlight, when these ships traveled, and they traveled for purposes of trade, in some ways, they were also representing some sort of multinational enterprises. They went to other nations, established contact, set up bases, and created a two-way transaction process. And maybe more than two ways. I'm not a historian. When these ships traveled, built far more superior than general ships from other nations, they did so with far more accuracy, greater speed, and to far off places where European ships could not even dream to go. And I will bear this out with evidence. Indian ships from Indian ports all across India's coastline were traveling well beyond Africa. And not many of us know that Vasco da Gama, who is credited with having discovered the sea route to India, actually had an Indian navigator by the name of Kana who brought his ship from Africa to India. What we don't know is that Indian ships were doing this regularly. And why was that? Why were they faster, more accurate, and they knew how to chart the oceans? Because Kana and other shipmen had devices with them. Rapalgai is one of these devices which allowed them to determine latitude at sea. And they used nautical tables that came out of Indian systems of education, which were based on the discovery of the calculus which had happened 500 years before the time of Newton in India. 500 years before. Matter of history. Recorded now by many distinguished Western scholars. Many. And so what is this about sustainable development and a knowledge system like a college of yours that I wish to speak about? My point is this. There is no record of these trade mechanisms, this business enterprise, these enterprises, the connection between systems of education and business and enterprise causing any harm to society. India's contribution to global GDP in that age or those ages was more than 30%, single-handedly. So what was it? Somewhere they had understood what is sustainable development. No harm seems to have accrued to society. That is why we came to be regarded as a golden bird. And so it may serve us well if we do examine a little bit what were the economic policies, what were the policies of education in those ages. I do not hark back to the past for reasons of chivalry. It is good that we are proud, but that's not the reason. I want the past to also show us the way for the future, a little bit. And we also learn from the present and other experiences. And my point is twofold. For the theme of this conference, a system of education like this distinguished college must come forward. It must show the way. We, somewhere in India, along the way in the 20th century, lost ourselves, completely forgot the lessons of the past, and we took, in a warped, distorted fashion, a Western model. There are many advantages of the Western model, many great things. I admire it deeply, and I have also benefited. But not everything is good. I want you to think about that. And so will systems of education reconfigure themselves a little bit in the context of what has happened in the immediate past of the last 10 years and also what we have learned the last few thousand years? And I urge you to think about that. And that may help sustainable development come about in a better way. We need to think carefully. Think about this, that there are a bunch of universities. If you examine the world economy of the last 7-8 years, it has literally been brought to its knees, almost to a standstill. We in India are terribly worried that our economy has slowed down to something like almost 6% or a little below that. We're really worried. We're upset. I see people writing in newspapers, the economy is in a mess. I see Parliament discussing this. I want the young students to know something interesting. The Brazilian president was here a few months ago. We at the university gave her an honorary doctorate, a distinguished lady. We admire her, and so we gave her this doctorate. And I asked her over a cup of tea, is your economy doing all right? And she said, yeah, we did quite well. We grew at 2%. We need to think about this. And so there are lessons here that could be taken forward in other ways. India cannot be suppressed. India's time has come. I want the young to think about this, especially on occasions like this. Let India begin to show the way. The world economy is considered good when they rise at 2%. Why did this happen? Where did things go wrong? If you look collectively, the financial markets, the world of finance, messed it up. And what was driving the thought processes and actions of the world of finance, especially in the Western world? Largely the products of a handful of universities on the east coast of the United States, in law, in finance, in management, in economics. And we need to think, therefore, do these knowledge systems really bring about sustainable development when they crash every odd decade? Is that sustainable? Does it not cause harm? Do these policies, do these ideas work? And you will find, of course, there are no final answers. Be wary of anybody who says, I have the final answers. Nobody has. But let there be some thought processes, some directions that emerge. Conferences like these must show the way. And the second purpose of such a conference, again through the Indian model, as I said in the past, it worked so well. It was always connected with society. It was never a classroom experience only. Never. The Upanishads are full of that. There is a story of Upanishadic origins where a student is about to graduate from a Gurukul. But his guru says, it isn't complete yet. You need to go serve at this merchantman's place. And when you're done with him, and I will determine when you're done, then I will say you're ready to go out into the world. You have your knowledge in a pure knowledge system, which means just blackboard oriented or a textbook knowledge, is not knowledge until it is put into action. But the Indian system was always a holistic approach. Action leads to knowledge and knowledge leads to action. It's a two-way process. You need to use your hands. And Mahatma Gandhi said this time and again, and Gandhi ji would never say anything about anything until he had experimented and learnt well. And in the context of education, Mahatma Gandhi said, after having set up successfully a school, then a university, and then a polytechnic for women, he said categorically, what you do with your hands will enter your heart. And what is it? It means knowledge in action. And if you look at all the great ones, if you look at Newton's life, literally and otherwise he was connected with the real world. He used his hands in every sense of the term. His knowledge was the knowledge of action. All his experiments with light are done with his hands. They lead him to gravitation, which is then high-end knowledge. But it is light which he does with his hands that leads him to gravitation. And the same experiments in light that allow him to construct this marvelous device, the reflecting telescope. Einstein did the same. He worked at his father's electric goods factory, where they manufactured electrical equipment, played with magnets